Welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started. Welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast. I am joined today by Nic De Castro from LandTrust, and we are going to talk about entrepreneurship today and some of his adventures in business. So, Nic, welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast.
Hey, appreciate you having me on, John.
Great to have you. Why don't you give us a quick introduction to you, just so everybody knows? Nic and I got connected through LandTrust, which many of you are familiar with. If you are not, we'll talk about how to look them up in a little bit. But Nic's done all kinds of interesting things that I thought would be really interesting for our audience, and I'd like to dive into some of those before we get into the details of LandTrust. So hit us,
Sure.
Nic. Where are you coming from?
Yeah, so real quick background on myself. I'm 37, just to age myself. I was born in Southern California. I grew up at the beach. I grew up hunting and fishing while that stuff was still possible to do in Southern California.
In Southern California, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy. It is crazy now, but back then I grew up hunting quail in the deserts and fishing and surfing and spearfishing at the beach. And, so it was a pretty cool place. I feel like I was the last generation to really get to experience it without being completely overdeveloped. Went to school in Boston, then went into New York City. I was in the advertising and marketing technology industry for about a decade. So I lived all over the country, traveled a bunch. I worked with a lot of, Fortune 50, Fortune 500 brands, selling them online advertising. So I was early in the YouTube ecosystem, kind of helping brands come in and work with creators in YouTube, which sounds obvious today, but in 2011, it was very scary for them to have some YouTuber like talk about their flagship vehicle or whatever it is, right? So yeah, it was a really interesting industry to work in. I had started another startup back in my early 20s, floundered with it, just, was not equipped to grow and scale that business. And, I tried to do it while doing other things as well, which, maybe some people can do it. I think focus is really important. And when you're trying to build something, as you know, and I'm sure all your listeners, building a business is pretty all consuming. So trying to do multiple is, again, maybe there's some people out there that can nail it and God bless them, but it wasn't for me. But then, yeah, I moved to Bozeman from Colorado in the end of 2016 and was kind of immediately confronted with what today is LandTrust. As I mentioned, I love to hunt and fish. The West obviously has a ton of public land, but I was, in Bozeman looking around and there's all these beautiful ranches and farm ground in and around town. I'm like, man, I would love to go out there and hunt or fish for the day or the weekend or whatever. And there was just no easy way to do it. As I'm sure your audience knows, door knocking is not ideal. And I think it's just, there's a lot more people doing it. It's disruptive to the landowner. It's a weird interaction. Like, I'm not a shy person. I was a sales guy, but I still didn't enjoy doing it. We both know why we're there. We're kind of dancing around the whole, pleasantries, and it's just a weird interaction. So I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. I had been an early host on Airbnb's platform in New York City in 2010, 2011. And that was kind of eye-opening. I was like, wow, I've got this apartment. I'm flying on, I'm all over the place. I'm never there. I'm paying this money. I could let people stay there and I can pay for my lease for the year or whatever. So that was kind of my introduction to the sharing economy. It's kind of what we call these things. So that was an obvious model to me to say, well, there's all these hosts, prospectively, landowners who've got these assets, land that's sitting unused from a recreation perspective. And, I obviously know there's a bunch of people who would love to pay for that because I'm one of them. At least that's what my hypothesis was. And that's what led me to where we are today.
That's pretty awesome. So you've mentioned a few things in there, and I think you're kind of demonstrating it. Give me a little bit of your sort of philosophy of what makes a successful business.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I guess I'm still working on it.
We all are,
yeah. I've definitely learned a bunch, and I've gotten to work with other, successful businesses that I didn't start. I don't know. I think people are super important. Working with people who, I like to say, I want to hire competent, motivated adults. And I think those three words kind of sum it up. You got to have a base level of competence. In the past, I've hired some people who were very motivated adults, but they just didn't have the base level of competence. And no matter how hard they tried, it wasn't going to get there. And it's sad because they're great and they give you everything they got, but it's just you just need a little bit more base level competence. So there's that. You got to be working on something you actually care about. I think if you're running a business, and I think even as an employee, I've gone and spoken to, entrepreneurial courses and at universities like MSU and Bozeman. And I think there's a lot of sexiness applied to, especially because I'm in a technology startup, movies and articles and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's not what this is. Certainly some people do achieve that. Like some people win the Powerball too. Like, I don't know, but this is something that is really hard. It's kind of all consuming. My business is probably the number one thing me and my wife fight about over the past 6 years. It's
Same.
just something you don't ever turn off. And it's worth it though, because I love it. It means something to me, and it's not just a way to make money. It's actually a really generally kind of poor way to make money. I made more money personally as a W-2 employee before I started this business, like a lot more, and a consultant. Now I'm building something, and we can get into kind of like the structure of my company. It's a little bit different than I would say like purely a cash flowing operation. But yeah, I'd say work on something that you actually care about and have passion for.
Right. Cool. And you mentioned something that's very much akin. My dad always talks about the importance of attendance, attitude, and aptitude, and that those are three. You're what did you say? Competent, motivated
Adults.
adults. Yeah, I like it.
Adult, it just insinuates that you're responsible, and I don't have to.
Yeah, that's really good. So the other thing you mentioned is this idea of a hypothesis, and this is one of the things I find most interesting about business. I spent some time in college doing some science, got really interested in the idea of there is a hypothesis that a business tests. Right? Is there a customer for this business? Are they willing to pay for this service? Are they willing to pay for this product? And the best test is the business. Right? The business itself is an expression of, is this hypothesis correct? And if the answer is no, then you need to either change course or it doesn't work, right?
That's right. Yeah, in the world I work in, so I work in, LandTrust is a website, which is software, and there's benefits to it and there's negatives to it. But when it comes to hypotheses, a lot of founders can get kind of hung up, and it's kind of scary to launch a business, right? Because you're putting yourself out there. You put all this time and energy and thought into it, and it's kind of safe to not launch it because you can still think it's going to be successful. But once you get it out there, you're like, well, it is or isn't going to be successful, and everyone's going to know. But often when people are thinking about starting a business, they'll talk to friends and family and, and they'll give you, this is a great idea. And you'll talk to, who you think your prospective customers are going to be. And I say think because I mean that. And they'll say, yeah, I definitely use that. And, you get all this potentially false positive reinforcement. I tell people now, I just had a young entrepreneur schedule time with me tomorrow to meet up, and I don't know what his business is, but my advice is like make contact with the customer immediately and try to get them to pay you for what you think is valuable. If it's valuable, they'll pay. They'll vote with their credit card or their cash. Getting I'd definitely buy that. Oh, that's a great idea. Like it doesn't mean anything. So just like the rubber meets the road when someone's willing to trade you their hard-earned money for the thing, the good or service. And until that happens, it's just an idea.
Yeah. Struggling to break into the tight-knit world of ranching? Connect, compete, and grow with our new networking platform. Real ranchers, real insights, real opportunities. Visit ranching.fyi and click forums. One of the most valuable things I learned in graduate school was completely unintentional. There was another professor in our department that did a lot of like survey type work, and they did a lot of natural resource questionnaires and that sort of thing. And what was so funny about it was this obvious conclusion that came out of one student's study, which is people say one thing on a questionnaire and they always do something different. Like it is literally never, they answer the question one way and then literally walk the other direction. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm generally not super into surveys. In software, when we think we have a good idea, we build it and put it in front of them for them to use it for real. Occasionally a survey is useful for something, I don't know. But yeah, for that exact reason, people, what they think and what they do often are divergent.
Yeah, really interesting. Let me ask you this, as a guy with a marketing background, how does that sort of uniquely position you to be a business owner, to be a business leader, to think about business?
Yeah. So look, I would say I was a sales guy and I sold to marketers. So I had to understand marketers, but I would not consider myself a marketer. I'm a sales guy. And I've done some product work as well.
Explain the difference real quickly for our audience, if you don't mind.
To me, marketers are people who are coming up with ideas on how to communicate what a brand or a product is value to a consumer audience. So why they should care, what the benefits are, all that stuff. A sales guy, like I used to sell to businesses. So I too have to say, like, I have to articulate what my product does for this person who works at this company. But I'm not the one creating collateral, content, channel strategy, budgeting, all that stuff, right? And so there's just kind of a nuance there. Like I know you market cattle and you market crops and that kind of stuff. It's more to like an end consumer. So for me, I've always been good at the sales side of things. And I think sales is literally every part of your life. But having worked in the marketing industry and having, to understand marketing at that level, it certainly has helped. Again, I have a website, a software product, understanding how to leverage platforms like Instagram or Facebook and their advertising and YouTube and whatnot and Google certainly has helped us distribute our product, our services, make people aware and acquire customers online. Because I've always worked in the online world. I didn't ever do any offline advertising. So, it was certainly helpful. Like I came in and I worked at one point with the number one mobile game in the world. They were making $6 million a day net from mobile games, right? So I got to see how they acquired customers online across YouTube, Google, Facebook, like all these channels. So I got to see the best in the world and how I sold a software into them to acquire customers on YouTube. So certainly I got to sit kind of in the buddy seat, so to speak, and see how this stuff worked. And that has helped.
Right. So there's another part of a sales and marketing focus, or either of those, that is often different than where we come from in agriculture, which is you are explicitly focused on the end user, on the customer, on the client, right?
Yeah.
That's a place where I find that many of us in agriculture, we forget that, right? Our client is some sort of amorphous, large thing. You're actually, as a salesperson, you're actually sitting down to those people face to face or on the phone with them face to face, helping them solve problems, right?
That's right.
Okay, so that to me, again, is a very, I don't want to say it's unique, because I don't think it's unique sort of countrywide, but it is a bit unique in our industry. One of the things that you can get away with in our business is not really putting any effort into marketing or sales and still achieve some measure of success. Whereas in a business like yours, if you don't do marketing, you're dead. Like it's the end. It's over. There's no public market for what you sell where you can just show up and drop it off and somebody will send you a check, right?
Yeah, no, if we're not communicating and reaching and making aware landowners and guests in our business model, like the two sides of our marketplace, every single day we die. So we have to constantly be thinking about what matters to them, how they think about the problems that they're trying to solve, how our solution is good for them, and then how to reach them. Podcasts like this, honestly, podcasts are a phenomenal way to reach people because it's longer form conversation. You get to do more than just a quick soundbite. We have used advertising in the past, but yeah, I mean, every single day we are focused on reaching and engaging with our end customers and partners on both sides every single day.
Yeah. And again, you're in the current business, you have two sets of customers, right? This is a fascinating piece to me, where you have the consumer, if you will, the user, and then you have the service provider. And
so
B&B are all in this intermediary position, right?
Yeah, so we're considered a two-sided marketplace. So for people who don't know what LandTrust is, we consider ourselves a land sharing marketplace for outdoor recreation. What does that mean? Think Airbnb, but for hunting, fishing, camping, etc., on private land. So we actually have one customer and we have one partner. So our landowners are our hosts. They are our business partner. They don't pay us any money to list with us. They're not our customer. They're our partner. And so we make money alongside of them. We're on the same side of the table. LandTrust makes no money if our landowners don't make money. So we get a commission on transactions. That's it. And then our shared customer are people who love to hunt or fish or camp or bird watch or take photos, whatever it might be. They want to have access to land for something outdoor rec.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Okay. But again, that whether those landowners are partners or otherwise, you still have to market to them, right?
Absolutely.
If you get out of balance on the customer landowner part, you've got a real problem, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Cool. How you deal with a lot of landowners, you deal with a lot of agricultural people. As an outsider looking at our businesses, what do you see? And I'm curious, sort of good, bad, and ugly. But what do you see as a person with your background? You have a very different perspective than I do, or obviously most of our landowners. What stands out?
Yeah. So for context, yeah, I didn't come from ag. So totally brand new to ag. When I started this business, learned a ton. I learn still every day, which is why I love it. And we've got, I don't know, 1.4 million acres in 44 states. Most of our landowners are production ag owner operator. So just for context, had thousands of these conversations. I
Generally
think
meaning family farms and ranches, right?
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think that the thing that is jumps out, family dynamics are huge. I almost look at it as like an enterprise sale. I used to sell enterprise software, so you sell into a big organization. There's not one person that can say yes, right? There's the champion who brings you in the door, like, "Hey, I found this cool new thing," and then there's a decision maker. There's a blocker. There's someone who's like, "No, absolutely not." And there's, then they got to have these meetings, and so it's really similar to selling like a solution into a big organization. It's not like just like I'm selling you a razor and you can just say, yes, I'm going to buy this right now. I've still never seen one organization, one farm or ranch where like one person we have one meeting. They're like, yes, we're signing up and you're live. I haven't seen it. So that's really interesting. The types of landowners who end up coming to LandTrust and being successful are traditionally the more progressive landowner. I'm not saying progressive in a political perspective.
Correct. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So these are people who I always joke, if you say this isn't how granddad did it, you're not going to be one of our landowners. Not for another 10 years. In 10 years you will be. But right now you're not going to. So they've got to have a mindset where they are running a business. And we see that a lot, but we've talked to many, 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 many landowners who don't list with us, who did not look at their operation as a business. And they would say that. It's a joke because it's real. Like, that's not how we've ever done it around here. Well, I don't know. Granddad didn't have the internet. There's quite a few new things that are, happening contextually that just weren't there when Granddad was running the place. I think the saddest, most dangerous thing is like a complete lack of planning, and especially when it comes to for the next generation. The amount of landowners that we've dealt with, and you see it, and they're just like, "Yep, Grandpa's 86, and he's still running it, and he's not in good health, and no one knows what the is going to happen when he dies." And then it's just like chaos, and there's money and land and all this stuff, and it's just like awful to see. And you see families totally divided and broken when the patriarch or the matriarch dies and there's no plan. So, succession planning, I don't have anything to do with that. Like, it's not my business. But I'm just saying from the outside looking in, I have friends who have big ranches in this exact situation. And it's going to be absolute chaos and it will destroy families because they were not willing to have uncomfortable conversations. And I would say almost every time the most uncomfortable conversation is probably the one you should have right away. There's a big ranch that's been partners with us for a while in LandTrust, and they're going through they're having to sell it. And there's one of the sons of the original landholder has lived his whole life there, runs his operation, and that's what he and his kids love to do. And there's 3 other kids who live in West Palm Beach or whatever, and like, let's sell this thing, man. Let's make $50 million. Who gives a right? So I don't have, my business doesn't touch that at all, but it's just kind of sad to see that. And it ends the same way every time: infighting and broken families and, operations that disappear.
I would love to think that we are above average with our customers and that, but we literally have one of those that's just happened this year, 2 actually.
So predictable. It's the most predictable thing.
Yeah. Very, very sad. Good. What else do you see? Those are some really good observations.
I would also like to say that, I don't know, like the multi-generation farm and ranch family is, to me, these communities are the backbone of America. These are people who are super trustworthy. It's funny because like I raise venture capital. I have investors, and some of those investors are from the coast or New York or whatever, right? And they're always worried about like, what happens if your landowners, go behind your back and do this? I'm like, well, what's really fun and I love about my landowners is they're honest people. And I don't have to worry about that like other industries do, where their partners will go behind them in a heartbeat to make a 0.25 percentage point better, right? So to me, that's the most satisfying and meaningful aspect of working in the business I do, is I get to partner with the best parts of America. We're a rural company, and these are, I think our oldest family is probably 6 generations deep. And these are people who do business with people on a handshake and do what they're going to say they're going to do. They work hard. They're the backbone of America.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's cool to hear. I appreciate that. it is something I think we have to defend actively.
Absolutely.
I, in recent years, have run across some of the, and not very recent, but here within the last 10 years, have run across a few, dishonest or disingenuous people. And as you allude to, it's a surprise, right? It takes me by surprise. I don't know if it catches people on Wall Street by surprise, but it
No, that's the everyday.
and it is so disappointing to get there, and think, really, we're supposed to be better than this. This is not our reputation. So,
yeah, you only get to lose your reputation once in these areas.
Yep, that's exactly right. All right, cool. We are going to do a couple things. We're going to do another episode where we're going to talk more specifically about LandTrust as itself. I wanted, again, you're in this entrepreneurship world. You've been in different parts of the world of business. I wanted to get some of your perspective on those to share with our customers, mostly because it's very different from what a lot of us do. But I really appreciate you being willing to share and talk about that. I think the coming from a sales and marketing background, coming from the world of technology, all of those things gives us the potential for a new perspective. And I really appreciate that. So, Nic, thank you for joining us today. We'll come back next week and talk a little more about LandTrust. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you for tuning into the Ranchnomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.